Chapter 71. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After leaving the ward, Bai Lan ran into Aoi Kanzaki. Bai Lan, Lord Ubuyashiki wants to see you, Aoi said, a hint of reluctance in her voice. She'd come specifically to deliver the message. Ubuyashiki Yoya. What does he want with me? Bai Lan wondered. Normally, Ubuyashiki Yoya would just come to the butterfly mansion himself, but things had changed a year ago. Ubuyashiki Yoya's condition had deteriorated, even more so than in the original story. Back then, he could still get around with help. Now, he was bedridden. Even with assistance, moving was a struggle, and compared to the handsome face Bai Lan remembered from their first meeting, Ubuyashiki Yoya's face was now ravaged by scars. It was the curse. The Ubuyashiki family was blood related to Kibutsuji Muzan. Ever since Muzan became a demon 1,000 years ago, a curse seemed to plague the family. Their children, especially the males, were born weak and sickly, doomed to an early death. To prevent the bloodline from dying out, the Ubuyashiki clan followed a priest's advice and married women from the priest's family for generations. This prolonged their lineage, but no one lived past the age of 30. Now, at just 23, Ubuyashiki Yoya was confined to his bed. Given his condition, asking him to come to the butterfly mansion would be too much. Alright, I'll head over now. Bai Lan nodded to Aoi, signaling his understanding. Without delay, Bai Lan used his speed to rush to the Ubuyashiki mansion. The butterfly mansion and the demon slayer headquarters weren't far apart. It only took him a few minutes. Arriving at the headquarters, Bai Lan was greeted by Ubuyashiki Hinaki, Ubuyashiki Yoya's daughter, who respectfully led him inside. In a room, Bai Lan found Ubuyashiki Yoya lying in bed. His wife, Ubuyashiki Amain, sat quietly beside him. Seeing Bai Lan, Amain gave a slight nod before gently informing her husband, who had long lost his sight due to the curse, of his arrival. Help me up, Ubuyashiki Yoya said weakly to Amain, extending a hand. Amain helped him sit up. Sorry to keep you waiting, Bai Lan, Ubuyashiki Yoya said softly, turning his head toward the door. Over the past few years, Bai Lan and Ubuyashiki Yoya had become close. They'd moved from polite greetings to calling each other by name, and even though Ubuyashiki Yoya couldn't see, he knew the door's location and that Bai Lan would be there. Bai Lan simply nodded and walked over to the bed, sitting down. What did you want to see me about? He asked directly. Bai Lan, my time is running out. I might not live long enough to see Miss Tamayo's research succeed, Ubuyashiki Yoya said gently. Bai Lan frowned. He was helpless against the curse. Despite having senjutsu, it had no effect. Ubuyashiki Yoya had asked Bai Lan for medical help after learning of his healing abilities, but senjutsu couldn't cure the curse. Bai Lan had spent much of the past year searching for Kibutsuji Muzan, hoping to kill him before Ubuyashiki Yoya's time ran out, but to no avail. Despite knowing the Kamadu family's situation and staking out Muzan, he'd managed to escape. His efforts had been fruitless. While Tanjiro had easily encountered Muzan, giving up on the search, Bai Lan decided to assist Tamayo in researching a drug to make demons less afraid of sunlight, hoping to lure out Muzan before Ubuyashiki Yoya passed away. How long do you think you have? Bai Lan asked, frowning. My body is failing rapidly. I might be gone within a month. Bai Lan, Miss Tamayo and I have a plan, as you know. What I'm about to say concerns that, Ubuyashiki Yoya said after a small cough. You should rest, and don't worry about Kibutsuji Muzan, Bai Lan said, frustrated that Ubuyashiki Yoya was still concerned about the plan in his condition. Thank you for your concern, Lan. However, I still hope to contribute if possible. If you and Miss Tamayo can develop a drug to make demons not afraid of the sun before I die, we can lure Kibutsuji Muzan here. I hope to be the first weapon to strike him down, Ubuyashiki Yoya said, smiling. Bai Lan understood immediately. He intended to sacrifice himself to create an opportunity to kill Muzan, just like in the original story. Bai Lan stood up. Instead of dwelling on that, focus on holding on. Don't worry about killing Kibutsuji Muzan. I've told you before, if Kibutsuji Muzan shows his face, I'm confident I can eliminate him, even without Tamayo's potions, Bai Lan said angrily before turning and leaving. Ubuyashiki Yoya wasn't angry. His lips curved slightly upward, and he murmured, even so, as the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, I still hope to play a role. Then, Ubuyashiki Yaoya seemed to remember something and fell silent. After a moment, he turned to Amain. Amain, I have a favor to ask of you. If Kibutsuji Musen doesn't show up before I die, I'll have to trouble you. The Demon Slayers need Bai Lan's power, Ubuyashiki Yoshiya said gently. I understand, Amain said, startled before understanding. She responded softly. Chapter 72. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After 10 days at the Butterfly Mansion, Tanjiro and the others received their new Nichiren swords and set out to hunt demons again, but as soon as Tanjiro got his back, the swordsmith Hataru Haganazuka chased him all over the place. Same went for the other two. Their personal swordsmiths treated them like enemies, hunting them down with hammers. They were practically driven out of the Butterfly Mansion. Initially, Bai Lan wondered why the swordsmiths were so enraged they'd resort to violence. But after hearing the full story from a hidden member, it all made sense. Tanjiro and Zenitsu had managed to break their Nichiren swords twice in 1 month. Swordsmiths consider the swords they forge their own lives, their own children, so, of course, they'd be furious to see them treated so carelessly. And Inosuke. He totally deserved it. He took a rock and smashed his freshly forged Nichiren sword, putting 18 holes in it, right in front of his swordsmith, Kanamori Kozo. Kanamori was so mad, he was the first to grab his hammer and try to beat Inosuke into the ground. Then the other two swordsmiths seemed to remember all the trouble they'd been through that month. The angrier they got, the more they lost it. They grabbed their hammers and gleefully joined the chase as the trio just received their new Nichiren swords. Tanjiro didn't even have time to say goodbye to Nezuko before Haganazuka chased him out of the Butterfly Mansion. Maybe we should keep a closer eye on these three, Bai Lan mused, watching them flee. They ran into Musen Kibutsuji not long after becoming Demon Slayers, then they met lower rank 5. Who knows who they'll run into next? If they get bitten by an upper rank demon, Nezuko will be devastated. Demon Slayers wish they could run into the 12 Kazuki every day. Kamado Tanjiro had just debuted, and so much had already happened to him. He could deal with it. With Tanjiro's strength, plus Zenitsu and Inosuke, they should be okay for a while, but against an upper rank, they wouldn't stand a chance in their current state. It's not like Byakuren was overestimating the upper ranks. He could handle them, but the only Hashira who could solo them were Himejima, Takedo, Kocho Kane, Kanroji and Kocho Shinobu. Himejima Jyomiai relied entirely on his breathing technique. Takedo's breath of the sun gave him an innate advantage against demons, making him a formidable foe. Combining both factors made him incredibly powerful. Kane and the other three needed to assist their own superpowers. 3 people's superpowers are improving with each passing day under Bai Lan's feeding. After 2 years, it is enough to deal with Shangxian alone, and this Shangxian is only Shangxian 4 and Shangxian Wu. Shangxian Sanyi Nest has the strength of Kane Hui and others. It is not necessarily possible to kill alone, at least 2 people need to work together to be sure. Even once the winding ghost breaks through the limit and makes his head the weak point disappear, then among the few people, only Toki Tetsumu, who practices the breath of the sun, it's possible for Ichiro to kill him, but it's just a possibility, and, in fact, Byakuren's worries were justified. Tanjiro, being the protagonist, was a magnet for trouble. Barely 10 days after leaving the Butterfly Mansion, the trio ran into another lower-rank demon, lower rank 2, Hero. They'd managed to work together to defeat lower rank 2, Rui, before, but this Hero was much stronger. They gave it their all and managed to behead him, but they suffered even worse injuries than last time. After the battle, they were too hurt to move. Luckily, hidden members found them and brought them back to the Butterfly Mansion. Seeing them being carried back, Bai Lan couldn't help but twitch his lips. Just over 10 days gone, and they were back, even more beat up than before. Bai Lan didn't mind that so much. What got to him was their insane luck. Since becoming a demon slayer, he hadn't run into the 12 Kazuki, except for that first year when he encountered the 2 upper ranks and lower rank 3. He only hunted down lower rank 5 and upper rank 6 because he knew where they were hiding, and Tanjiro had encountered 2 of them within 2 months of joining the Demon Slayer Corps. It was just unbelievable. I'm going to team up with you, Bai Lan announced after treating their injuries, shocking Zenitsu. Huh? Mr. Bai Lan, you want to join us? Tanjiro was surprised. Yeah, you guys are so lucky. I can never find the 12 Kazuki. You've met 2 of them just 2 months after becoming demon slayers. If I join you, maybe I'll finally run into an upper rank. Bai Lan nodded, looking serious. Zenitsu just rolled his eyes. Tanjiro noticed and laughed awkwardly. Forget it, Mr. Bai Lan. Undeterred by the rejection, Bai Lan shrugged and said, you should probably worry about your swordsmiths in a few days. Those words instantly petrified Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu. Their Nichiren swords had broken, the swords they just received a little over 10 days ago, broken again. Who knew how their swordsmiths would react? What are we going to do? Tanjiro wailed, grabbing his hair. Chapter 73. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A week later, the Butterfly Mansion was buzzing with activity again. It was another scene of the 3 friends being chased by the hot-tempered swordsmiths, hammers raised high. This time, though, Sanjiu wasn't just kicked out. They got a solid beating. After the swordsmiths had vented their frustrations, the trio stayed put for another 3 days before finally heading out. Without Bai Lan's help, their injuries would have meant at least 10 days of recovery at the Butterfly Mansion, followed by rehab before anyone there would even think about letting them leave. But with Bai Lan around, injured demon slayers could basically be patched up and out the door in a day or 2, the only reason Tanjiro and the others stuck around was because their Nichiren swords were busted. They were waiting for the swordsmiths from the village to deliver replacements. They couldn't exactly hunt demons without weapons. As Tanjiro and the others departed, Bai Lan was lost in thought. Then, snapping to attention, she headed straight for Demon Slayer headquarters. She arrived quickly and immediately went to see Ubuyashiki Yoya. Looking at the sleeping Ubuyashiki Yoshiya, Bai Lan sighed. He was fading fast. He probably didn't have much time left. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything Bai Lan could do. The curse involved too much mystery. Bai Lan hadn't encountered anything like it before and couldn't use the system to understand the abilities needed to help Ubuyashiki Yoshiya. The only solution was to find and destroy Muzan Kibutsuji, which would break the curse. But if it were that easy, Bai Lan would have done it already. She wouldn't be waiting for Tamayo to develop a drug that made demons immune to sunlight, hoping to lure him out. Shaking her head, Bai Lan didn't disturb Ubuyashiki Yoya, and instead went to find Ubuyashiki Amain. Since Ubuyashiki Yoya had fallen ill, Ubuyashiki Amain had taken over the Demon Slayer Corps' responsibilities. Bai Lan wanted to get an update on recent missions. Even though the story had changed significantly, Bai Lan wasn't sure if events from the original timeline would still happen. Judging by the timeline, Tanjiro and the others might be about to encounter the lower rank 1 and upper rank 3 demons with Rengoku and Juro. While she was stronger than the demon slayer Hashira, Byakuren admired them and didn't want them to die. So, Bai Lan was here to see if any missions related to the Mugen Train had surfaced recently. If they had, she'd leave immediately. In the Mugen Train arc, Rengoku and Juro died at the hands of upper rank 3, Akaza. If she didn't intervene, Rengoku and Juro was as good as dead. Even Tanjiro and his friends could be in serious danger. After all, against Akaza, even Rengoku and Juro and the trio combined wouldn't stand a chance. The servants at Demon Slayer headquarters had already informed Ubuyashiki Amain about Byakuren's arrival. As Bai Lan searched for Ubuyashiki Amain, Ubuyashiki Amain was on her way to meet Bai Lan. They met in a corridor soon after. Mr. Bai Lan, what brings you here this time? Ubuyashiki Amain asked upon seeing Byakuren. She was curious why Bai Lan was here. Formally, Bai Lan didn't come to headquarters. Her husband usually went to the Butterfly Mansion to see her. Even recently, as her husband's condition worsened, Bai Lan only visited when he came to see her. So, this surprise visit meant she definitely had a reason. I need to review the intel the Kikuchi have gathered recently, as well as the latest ghost hunting missions. Bai Lan nodded in greeting, then got straight to the point. I see. Please, come with me. While a bit surprised that Bai Lan wanted this information, Ubuyashiki Amain didn't refuse. Her husband had recently told her to do everything possible to keep Bai Lan involved with the Demon Slayer Corps. Byakuren was different from the other members. Her relationship with the Corps was more like a partnership, and she could leave at any time. If Byakuren left, the Corps' plan to defeat Muzan Kibutsuji would be much harder because Bai Lan was essential, so, if Bai Lan wanted to review intel and mission details, she wouldn't stop her. After all, reviewing information was harmless. Besides, the Hashira were allowed access to this information anyway. Soon, Ubuyashiki Amain led Byakuren to a spacious study filled with bookshelves. Ubuyashiki Amain led Byakuren to one of the bookcases and pulled out a couple of notebooks. This contains the latest information from the Kikushi, as well as details on the recent missions. Ubuyashiki Amain said gently, handing the notepads to Bai Lan. Bai Lan took them and began to review the contents. She was looking for information on Rengoku Anjuro, confirming Rengoku Shiro's status would confirm whether Purgatory Xing Shou Lang was in danger, but as she flipped through the pages, Bai Lan suddenly detected a fragrance. Startled, Bai Lan turned to find Ubuyashiki Amain standing very close. Peering at the notepad in her hand, why is she so close, she wondered looking at Ubuyashiki Amain, who was practically leaning against her, and she calmly moved to the right, but as soon as Bai Lan moved, Ubuyashiki Amain casually followed. Byakuren stiffened slightly and eyed Ubuyashiki Amain suspiciously. However, Ubuyashiki Amain seemed oblivious, and asked instead. Mr. Bai Lan, whose information are you looking for? I can help. Bai Lan. I want to find information about Yenju. Chapter 74. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Something's wrong, seriously wrong. Standing outside the train station, Bai Lan rubbed her chin, frowning as she replayed the scene in the Demon Slayer headquarters study. What is Ubuyashiki Amain up to? Amain's behavior was just plain weird. She kept leaning in, practically throwing herself into Bai Lan's arms. Amain is Ubuyashiki Yaoya's wife. A married woman acting like that? It felt like she was coming on to me. Everything was fine before, so why the sudden change? Bai Lan wondered. She racked her brain, but nothing made sense. Of course, she wasn't even close to guessing the real reason. If she knew, she'd be floored. Shaking her head, Bai Lan leaned against a pillar, watching the people flow through the station. Earlier, Amain had helped Bai Lan quickly locate recent ghost hunting missions for the Demon Slayer Corps. That's how she found out about Enju's assignment. The Mugen train. Tanjiro Kamado and his crew had also received the same mission a few days ago, heading to the same destination on the same train. This has to be the Mugen train arc, Bai Lan thought. If things followed the original story, there'd be demons eating people on the train. Then again, maybe this demon wasn't the initial one. The plot's already changed so much. Still, it was worth checking out, so, Bai Lan used Juji Tianya to warp straight to the station and wait. Sure enough, it wasn't long before she spotted Purgatory Kaijuro entering the station. Kaijuro's senses were sharp. He locked onto Bai Lan's gaze immediately. Surprise flashed across his face, and he strode over. Mr. Bai Lan, what are you doing here? He asked. Just running errands, Bai Lan said with a smile. Wow, I didn't expect you to be on this train too. What a coincidence. Kaijuro exclaimed. Mr. Bai Lan, do you have your ticket yet? Not yet. Want to ride together? Sure, why not? They bought tickets together and boarded the train, waiting for departure. Their seats were right next to each other. Since they bought the tickets at the same time, after Bai Lan and Kaijuro settled in, more passengers boarded. Soon, Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke showed up. Tanjiro's nose was incredible. Even without looking, he picked up Bai Lan's scent the moment he stepped on board. Mr. Bai Lan's scent. Huh? What are you talking about, Tanjiro? Zenitsu's face paled. He was terrified of Bai Lan. His name was a nightmare. He often dreamed of being torn apart by Bai Lan, his bones crushed to dust. I said, I smell Mr. Bai Lan right in front, Tanjiro replied, squeezing through the crowd. Behind him, hearing Tanjiro's confident tone, Zenitsu nearly had a panic attack. Hey, you okay? Inosuke asked, passing Zenitsu. Ugh. Zenitsu moaned, his soul practically leaving his body. Inosuke shrugged and followed Tanjiro. Meanwhile, Tanjiro had reached Bai Lan and Kaijuro, chatting excitedly with them. Well, mostly with Kaijuro. Tanjiro seemed to really like him. Looks like things are playing out like they should, Bai Lan mused, watching them. She activated her spatial perception. It didn't take long to sense a powerful demon at the front of the train. Others probably hadn't noticed yet, but Bai Lan felt it clearly. The demon's aura was spreading, trying to consume the entire train and make it part of itself, but Bai Lan held back. With Tanjiro and the others here, she'd let them handle the initial fight. She could clean up the mess later. Listening to Tanjiro and Kaijuro's conversation, Bai Lan closed her eyes, waiting for the moment to strike. In her perception, the demon's aura spread faster. A conductor entered the carriage to check tickets. The moment he finished, Kaijuro and the others were silently affected by the demon's spell, falling asleep without a sound. Only Bai Lan remained awake, but she didn't interfere, simply narrowed her eyes, waiting for Tanjiro and the others to break free from the spell. For Tanjiro, experiencing the dream could be a good thing. He could see his family again, so Bai Lan didn't stop it. Soon, several boys and girls controlled by Enmu entered the carriage. Seeing them, Bai Lan knocked them unconscious. Just because she wasn't going to rush to help Tanjiro didn't mean she'd let these minions cause trouble. Chapter 75. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xia Xianyi, noticing Bai Lan had KO'd his minion, doubled down on merging with the Mugen train. Pretty soon, Bai Lan could feel the whole train becoming one giant organism. He didn't try to stop Xia Xianyi, though. His only reason for being there was to back up the lower-ranked demon after Tanjiro and the others got some practice, and maybe even deal with the upper-rank 3 demon, Sanyi, if he showed up. But just as the Mugen train finished merging, Kaijuro, Rengoku and Tanjiro woke up. Whoa, that's one powerful demon sent. Rengoku, instantly picking up on the overwhelming evil aura, frowned hard. Without a second thought, he whipped out his Nichiren blade. The moment Rengoku drew his sword, the train started morphing. The wood and steel turned into fleshy walls, and pulsing sarcoma tentacles wrapped around the passengers. Xia Xianyi had complete control of the Mugen train, and everyone aboard was in immediate danger. Mr. Bai Lan, I'll handle the train. How about you take care of the demon? Rengoku suggested. It sounded like a discussion, but the moment he finished speaking, he was already hacking away at the sarcoma. Nah, I think I'll stick around and guard the train with you. Let the kids handle the demon. What do you say? Bai Lan shook his head at Rengoku's idea and turned to Tanjiro and the other 2, who were now awake. Tanjiro, mind doing me a favor? Rengoku nodded, seeing the sense in Bai Lan's plan. The train was too big for him to protect everyone alone. With Bai Lan's help, though, no problem. Sure thing, Mr. Bai Lan, Mr. Rengoku. Tanjiro said, dead serious. Inosuke Hashibara, already hyped up, charged off. This whole train's been taken over by the demon. That means the front of the train is the demon's head. Go chop it off. Bai Lan told them. Got it, Mr. Bai Lan. Tanjiro's eyes lit up, and he sprinted toward the front of the train. Zenitsu Agatsuma was terrified and wanted nothing to do with the demon, but he was even more afraid of Bai Lan, so he reluctantly trailed after Tanjiro, looking miserable. How do we split this up? Once the 3 were gone, Bai Lan asked Rengoku, who was still chopping tentacles. I'll take the last 4 cars. You take the first 4, Mr. Bai Lan. Rengoku responded. Nope. You just handle the first 2, and I'll take the other 6. Bai Lan shook his head. Why? Rengoku asked. Just trust me on this. Bai Lan said without explaining. Rengoku didn't argue. He knew Bai Lan was way stronger, and 6 cars wouldn't be a problem for him. As for why Bai Lan was doing this, he just wanted Rengoku to save some energy so he'd be able to put up a good fight against upper rank 3 when he showed up. Rengoku might not be a match for Akaza, but he could at least hold his own. Fighting strong opponents was the best way to get stronger fast. Just look at Tanjiro and the others. They'd taken on 2 lower rank demons in the last 2 months, and they were improving by leaps and bounds because of it. Even though Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke were dealing with lower rank 1, Bai Lan kept his spatial awareness cranked up. He remembered Tanjiro almost getting his neck sliced in the real world in the original story. If Tanjiro actually died because of this, Bai Lan wouldn't know how to face Nezuko. The 3 of them soon engaged with lower rank 1. This lower rank was Wei. Stronger than the lower rank 5 they'd faced before, apparently having received a heavy dose of Musen Kibutsuji's blood, just like in the original story, even though they'd killed the windmill demon, taking down this lower rank was still tough. Bai Lan and Rengoku, on the other hand, were chilling. Rengoku could easily protect 5 cars, and he was only guarding 2. It was a piece of cake. There was no way he would waste a lot of stamina. Bai Lan. He just used his demon powers to freeze all the tumors in the 6 cars he was responsible for, then sat back and started munching on the snacks Rengoku had brought. Rengoku had some great taste. The bento was delicious. He wondered where he got it. Wasn't it near the station? I gotta find out where to buy this next time I'm around. Bai Lan muttered between bites. Even though it was a tough fight, Tanjiro and the others didn't let Bai Lan down. After 10 minutes, they managed to behead lower rank 1, or at least, that's what Tanjiro and the other 2 thought. In reality, the moment Tanjiro struck the final blow, Bai Lan, who'd been watching closely, teleported to the end of the world, disposed of lower rank 1 with a single slash, and then teleported back. Tanjiro didn't even notice. Ding! Killed lower rank 1, gained 1,600 comprehension points. You got stabbed by a regular dude? I don't know how you managed that. I'm seriously embarrassed for you. Bai Lan said, shaking his head at Tanjiro, who was lying on the ground covered in blood. Meanwhile, the others were busy rescuing passengers, because lower rank 1 had been killed. The Mugen train, which had merged with him, was heavily damaged and derailed, trapping many people inside. Rengoku led Inosuke and Zenitsu to help people out of the wreckage. Sorry, Mr. Bai Lan. Sorry for the trouble. Tanjiro said sheepishly. Bai Lan just rolled his eyes and used senjutsu to heal him. In a few seconds, what looked like a serious injury was completely gone. Go give Rengoku a hand. Bai Lan ordered, seeing that Tanjiro was back on his feet. Right, Mr. Bai Lan. Tanjiro said and ran off to join the rescue effort. That's a strong aura getting closer. Looks like upper rank 3, Akaza, is on his way. Not long after Tanjiro joined the rescue, Bai Lan muttered under his breath. Chapter 76. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hey, Kaijuro, incoming. It's a string demon. I'll let you handle this one first. Bai Lan called out to Kaijuro. Rengoku, who was busy rescuing passengers, noticing the approaching presence. Rengoku didn't react right away. Then, a figure crashed to the ground nearby, kicking up smoke and dust. That's when Rengoku understood the situation. He instantly drew his Nichiren blade, his eyes fixed on the cloud of dust. This guy's strong. Let me soften him up a bit, Bai Lan said, smiling, watching as Rengoku prepared to fight. Mr. Bai Lan, you're not going to step in? Rengoku asked, still focused on the dust cloud, confusion in his voice. Haven't you always wanted to see what an upper-rank demon can do? Well, here's your chance. Bai Lan grinned. Just then, Tanjiro and the others caught up, drawing their swords, ready to help, but Bai Lan stopped them. You guys, keep rescuing people. Don't worry about this. But. Tanjiro started, worried. I said don't worry about it, so don't. You're not strong enough yet, you'll just get in the way, Bai Lan said, rolling his eyes at them. Even though they'd taken down lower-rank demons before, upper ranks were a whole different ballgame. Bravery was one thing, but they needed to know their limits. Kamadu, go save the passengers, Rengoku said, without turning around. Hearing both Hashira tell them this, Tanjiro and the others obeyed and went back to rescuing people. Just after they started, the dust settled, revealing Akaza standing there. Akaza had clearly overheard their conversation. He glanced at Bai Lan first, but, realizing Bai Lan had no presence and was just a regular person, Akaza lost interest and turned his attention to Rengoku. Without exchanging more than a couple of words, the two began to fight. Akaza's behavior surprised Bai Lan a little. In the original story, Akaza went straight for the weak, but somehow Akaza knew Bai Lan had no power, so he just ignored him and went straight for Rengoku. Weird. Bai Lan also noticed something else. The number in Akaza's eyes had changed from 3 to 2. He had been promoted to upper rank 2, well, Doma, the previous upper rank 2, had been killed by Bai Lan. So, Akaza got bumped up without having to fight. The conversation Bai Lan and Rengoku just had made Rengoku understand Bai Lan's idea, and he wasn't asking Bai Lan to join him when fighting with Akaza. Even though this 12 Kazuki in front of him was an upper rank, with Bai Lan here, he wasn't worried that something would go wrong. After all, the previous upper rank 2 was killed by Bai Lan. This new upper rank 2 in front of him isn't necessarily stronger than the previous one. According to Kocho Kane, the original upper rank 2 left her with no power to fight back and could only barely defend herself, but now, although the upper rank 2 in front of him was very strong, he was able to fight with it. It was completely different from what Kane said back then, and he had no power to resist at all. What Rengoku didn't know was that Akaza was holding back, because after seeing Rengoku and the fire in his spirit, Akaza wanted to recruit him, to convince him to become a demon. Right now, he was just showing Rengoku how powerful he could be as a demon, hoping to sway him. Of course, he wasn't trying to kill him. This is no match at all. It's a bit exaggerated for Akaza to say he released it into the sea, but it's still fair to say he released it into a lake. He suppressed Rengoku without even using his blood demon art. Bai Lan sat quietly in a train car, watching the fight and commenting to himself. As the strongest member of the Demon Slayer Corps, Bai Lan could tell that Akaza was incredibly strong. So strong that he could defeat and kill Rengoku even without using his blood demon art. If he used his blood demon art, Destructive Death, Compass Needle, and attacked with full force, Rengoku would be defeated and killed after only a few moves. As expected, after Rengoku continued to refuse his offer, Akaza finally gave up trying to persuade him and used Destructive Death, Compass Needle. Under the blood demon art, Rengoku was severely injured in just a few moves. One eye was bleeding and he couldn't open it. Several ribs were broken. "Sorry, Mr. Bai Lan. This is probably my limit," Rengoku said, acknowledging his injuries without bravado. "Yeah, you're right. Keep going and you'll die. In that case, I'll take it from here." Bai Lan nodded. "What are you saying? Bai Lan? Is that the name of the weakling over there? You actually asked for help from a weakling like that? I misjudged you, Kaijuro Rengoku." Hearing the conversation, Akaza roared, clearly angry. He admired Rengoku because of his incredible strength and fighting spirit, and wanted him to become a demon so they could train together and become stronger. But Rengoku's actions now were disappointing. Such a powerful man, asking for help from someone so weak. It was an insult to warriors everywhere. Angry, Akaza was filled with murderous intent. Destructive Death, Annihilation Style. Chapter 77. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With Yowozuo unleashing his blood demon art, a terrifying power surged in his fists. This was Destructive Kill, a concentrated attack that channeled all his power into a single punch, unleashing devastating force on impact. In the original story, this was the move that crushed Kaijuro Rengoku's ultimate technique, Purgatory, leaving him severely wounded. A direct hit from this would cripple Kaijuro. Even if he used his flame-breathing ninth form, Purgatory, it was this very attack that inflicted the fatal injuries that led to Kaijuro's death. But with Bai Lan present, that wasn't going to happen. Just as Yowozuo launched his attack, Bai Lan appeared instantly in front of Kaijuro. This so-called destructive killing blow was nothing to Bai Lan. Without even drawing his sun blade, he casually blocked the punch with his bare hands, all bark and no bite. The instant Bai Lan caught Yowozuo's fist, the force behind it vanished completely. "You blocked it?" Yowozuo was stunned. He couldn't believe that someone with seemingly no fighting spirit could withstand his destructive kill. "How did he even get in front of me? I didn't even see him move." Blocking a blow from an upper-rank demon, known as the best close combat fighter, with his bare hands, completely unscathed and without breaking a sweat. That's Bai Lan's current physical ability. No, Bai Lan's physical strength was far beyond that. He barely registered Yowozuo's attack. "Mr. Bai Lan, I'm counting on you." Seeing Bai Lan step in, Kaijuro, fighting through the pain, said, "Got it, leave it to me." Bai Lan nodded, and Kaijuro returned the nod, stepping back to give them space. His body couldn't handle a fight of this intensity. He'd only get in the way, so he needed to let Bai Lan handle it. Sorry, I'll have to sit this one out. Show me what you've got. Bai Lan said to Yowozuo with a smile after replying to Kaijuro. Yowozuo snapped back to reality, his eyes turning serious, a hint of excitement flickering within. I can't sense any fighting spirit from you, but the fact that you took my punch without a scratch makes you a truly powerful warrior. Demon Slayer, tell me your name. Yowozuo said, slowly pulling back his fist, a grin spreading across his face. Bai Lan, Flame Pillar of the Demon Slayer Corps. Bai Lan, the Flame Pillar. Bai Lan, you should become a demon. Yowozuo repeated Bai Lan's name and extended the same offer he'd given Kaijuro. Sorry, I'll have to pass. My goal is to take down Muzan. Bai Lan refused, smiling. Muzan? Yowozuo tilted his head, confused by the name Bai Lan used. The next moment, he winced in pain. So that's it. Is that what he's called? Doesn't sound very flattering. The sharp pain in his mind made him understand, and his expression turned puzzled. Bai Lan didn't know why he called their master Muzan, but he suspected it wasn't a term of endearment. He's been hiding from the Demon Slayer Corps like a scared dog, after all. Bai Lan shrugged. Yowozuo didn't argue, falling silent. It was true. Muzan had never appeared before the Demon Slayer Corps, only sending them orders. He couldn't deny it. Without another word, Yowozuo immediately launched another destructive kill, a snowflake-shaped pattern forming under his feet. Come on, Bai Lan, that if he could defeat this guy, there might be a way to turn him into a demon. Seeing Yowozuo burning with fighting spirit, Bai Lan drew his Nichiren blade from its sheath with respect. Seeing Bai Lan draw his Nichiren blade and get ready to fight, Yowozuo didn't hesitate and launched an attack immediately, destructive kill, annihilation style. A flurry of supersonic punches came at Bai Lan. The sheer force generated powerful sonic booms all around him. Facing the onslaught, Bai Lan casually waved his Nichiren blade. In an instant, Yowozuo's arm was severed and went flying. Pain flashed across Yowozuo's face, quickly replaced by disbelief. It wasn't the first time his arm had been cut off, but he always regenerated it almost instantly. When Kaijuro had cut his arm before, it had grown back in less than a second, but this time, intense heat radiated from the wound. This burning sensation stopped the regeneration. Blood poured from the stump. Yowozuo leaped back, clutching his bleeding arm. Stopping a safe distance away, he stared at Bai Lan in shock. What kind of breathing style do you use? How can you be so powerful? Yowozuo asked, his voice serious. Sun breathing. Bai Lan replied, smiling. Yowozuo's pupils shrank. His serious expression vanished, replaced by excitement. I can fight a sun breather. What an honor. Chapter 78. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He'd heard whispers of the breath of the sun back when he challenged upper rank 1, Heishimo. That's the original breathing technique, the one Heishimo always raved about. Heishimo said that before becoming a demon, learning the breath of the sun was his ultimate goal. Unfortunately, he just didn't have the knack for it. No matter how he tried, he couldn't master it, so he settled for second best and developed the breath of the moon, a slightly inferior version. Heishimo was incredibly powerful, the strongest warrior he'd ever known, so, how could a breathing technique he admired so much be anything less than extraordinary? That's why, ever since learning about the breath of the sun, he'd been searching for demon slayers who used it, but his search had been fruitless. None of the demon slayers he encountered, not even the Hashira, knew the breath of the sun. He never expected to find it here today, and now, he understood why Heishimo had been so obsessed with learning it. The breath of the sun was unique. It seemed to have a powerful restraining effect on demons. As the second strongest of the 12 Kazuki, his regeneration ability was exceptional, but after his arm was severed by the breath of the sun sword technique, the wound still burned with intense heat, completely suppressing his regeneration. Regenerating the arm required a massive expenditure of energy to expel the aura, a breathing technique with such potent anti-demon properties. No wonder Heishimo craved it so much. After all, Heishimo had been a demon slayer himself before his transformation. What an honor. Interesting, Bai Lan said with a smile, surprised by Yowozuo's words. Ah, what an honor, Yowozuo replied seriously. narrowing his eyes slightly, then, he clenched his remaining fist, lowered his head, and roared. Veins bulged beneath his skin as he gathered his strength. In a burst of blood, Yowozuo's severed arm regenerated. "Sorry to keep you waiting," he said, waving his newly restored arm. Immediately, he deployed his destruction art, compass needle, destruction art, air style. With the technique unleashed, Yowozuo launched his attack, fists flying and sending invisible shockwaves toward Bai Lan. Bai Lan remained calm, casually deflecting the attacks with his sun blade, standing his ground with no intention of attacking. Yowozuo frowned. Noticing this, he knew what Bai Lan was doing. Bai Lan was waiting for him to attack, to use all the moves he'd mentioned, not just as a joke. Bai Lan was waiting to counter, just as he had before. While Bai Lan's approach was insulting, Yowozuo wasn't angered. Bai Lan had handled his attacks with ease, his attacks posed no threat, so he deserved the insult. In this scenario, the enemy was strong, and he was weak, however. "I refuse to admit I'm weak." A wild grin spread across Yowozuo's face. He unleashed a surge of power, kicking off the ground and transforming into a blur as he charged toward Bai Lan. A destructive kick flashed with a burst of light. Yowozuo reached Bai Lan and unleashed his full force. Planting one foot, he launched into a ferocious combo, a dazzling display. The intense impact generated sonic booms, creating violent explosions, and sending shockwaves outward. Passengers who Tanjiro and the others had just rescued were knocked off their feet. Such power! To create an impact like this from so far away. Kaijuro Rengoku observed the battlefield with a grave expression. Seeing Yowozuo's all-out attack, Kaijuro understood how much he'd been holding back during their fight. That's a terrifying amount of power. Is this the strength of an upper-rank demon? "Everyone, get out of here now!" Tanjiro shouted, shocked by the power Yowozuo was unleashing. It was even more terrifying than when he'd fought Kaijuro. After the initial shock, Tanjiro noticed the fallen passengers and began helping them to evacuate. Kaijuro gave the battlefield one last look before joining the effort to evacuate the passengers. The aftermath alone was terrifying. If the fight moved any closer, the passengers would be caught in the crossfire, and if that happened, there would only be one outcome: death. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, Bai Lan was relaxed and composed. He effortlessly blocked every attack Yowozuo threw at him. Yowozuo cycled through every move he knew: chaotic air, flash step, flying star dust, shattered willow, ghost core eightfold, and the final technique, Chinin chaotic afterglow. The battlefield was reduced to rubble, but Bai Lan remained unscathed. In fact, Bai Lan hadn't even moved his feet. This is getting scary. The more they fought, the more excited Yowozuo became. Chapter 79. You are listening at novelfull.audio. That Yowozuo is a real beast when it comes to fighting. System, crank up the understanding 100-fold so I can master destruction and obliterate him. Bai Lan barely even flinched, easily blocking Yowozuo's attack without moving an inch. Still, Bai Lan had to admit, the guy's boxing and kicking were seriously impressive. Bai Lan wasn't exactly a master of hand-to-hand combat. Watching Yowozuo, he suddenly wanted to figure out the secret behind the art of destroying and killing vampires. Ding! 100-fold understanding activated. Ding! Congratulations! You've unlocked max-level mastery of all three types of haki. Destruction and killing leads to the three-color haki from One Piece. Bai Lan was caught off guard by the system's announcement. He wanted to learn some martial arts, not gain some kind of power. Haki makes you stronger, but it isn't a fighting style with fists and feet. The next second, Bai Lan's mind flooded with information. An incredible power surged through him. He immediately recognized it, the power of three-color haki, not just any haki either. This felt like the real deal, the kind you see at the peak of One Piece. After processing the flood of information, Bai Lan's doubts vanished. Haki was awesome, especially maxed-out three-color haki. He now possessed the strongest armed color haki with hardening, entanglement, outer release, and internal destruction. His observation haki allowed him to sense, predict, and even anticipate attacks. He could feel the strength, emotions, and thoughts of others. He could even detect the location and quantity of objects beyond his line of sight and get glimpses of the future. On top of that, he had Conqueror's Haki, with its pressure, entanglement, and the ability to knock out opponents on sight. Bai Lan instantly understood and could utilize the Overlord Haki abilities from One Piece. The amount of Haki in his body had also instantly maxed out. It was massive. Bai Lan could use Haki non-stop for days without even tiring. With all three colors of Haki mastered at the peak level, what was there to complain about? Seeing Yowozuo charge again, Bai Lan decided to drop the defense. He lowered his sun's sword a fraction, then clenched his left fist. Black and red lightning crackled out, spreading in every direction. Yowozuo, mid-attack, froze for a moment. Then, his eyes lit up with excitement. He sensed immense power from the black and red lightning. He lived for battles with strong opponents. For the clash of raw power, Yowozuo immediately abandoned his attack and shifted into a new stance. Destructive kill. Yowozuo channeled every ounce of his power into his fist and threw it at Bai Lan. Bai Lan didn't defend this time either. He unleashed his fist, wrapped in Overlord color Haki. Boom. Black and red lightning shot skyward. The forces collided, sending out a shockwave that blasted everything away. The dilapidated carriage was lifted off its tracks, crashing into the nearby forest. Even Tanjiro and the others were sent flying, joining the train carriage in its impromptu flight. Only Purgatory and Zuro managed to dig his Nichiren sword into the ground, barely holding his position against the impact. Still, he had to brace himself with all his strength. He couldn't even open his eyes against the force of the blast. Fortunately, during the lull in Yowozuo's attacks, Purgatory and Zuro had evacuated the passengers from the carriage, moving them to safety. Otherwise, that kind of impact would have crushed their organs and killed them instantly. The intense shockwave lasted for a full 10 seconds before finally subsiding. Purgatory and Zuro slowly opened his eyes and scanned the scene. His eyes, normally so wide and steady, instantly widened. He muttered in disbelief, "What terrifying power!" Before him, the once flat ground was now a massive crater. He didn't need to measure it to know it was at least 50 meters in diameter and 6 or 7 meters deep. Purgatory and Zuro couldn't imagine a single punch causing that much destruction. Snapping out of his shock, he remembered Bai Lan and Yowozuo. He quickly scanned the crater, searching for them. He spotted Bai Lan standing in the center of the pit. At his feet was another figure, lying motionless. It was Yowozuo. Yowozuo was in bad shape. His body was a mangled mess. One arm and one leg were gone. There was a gaping hole in his abdomen, and only half of his head remained. Despite the horrific injuries, Purgatory and Zuro could see that Yowozuo's body showed no signs of regeneration. Is he completely drained? Having dealt with demons for so long, Purgatory and Zuro knew why demons sometimes failed to regenerate. They needed stamina to heal. If a demon's injuries persisted, it meant their stamina was completely depleted, preventing them from activating their regenerative abilities. In other words, Bai Lan's attack had dealt so much damage that Yowozuo had burned through every last bit of stamina trying to heal. That was why he was in such a state. Yowozuo wasn't refusing to heal, he simply didn't have the energy left to do so. "Mr. Bai Lan, what incredible strength," Purgatory and Zuro muttered. He could barely comprehend taking down an upper moon demon with a single punch, draining him of all stamina and regeneration. It was just too mind-bogglingly strong. No wonder the master said that with Mr. Byakuren, finding Kibutsuji Musen would mean the end of the Demon King in this generation. Chapter 80. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "That's not the sun's breath," Akaza whispered, collapsing at Byakuren's feet. Demon slayers are swordsmen, helpless without their Nichiren blades against demons, but Byakuren fought bare-fisted, and Akaza had never seen such power, one punch causing devastating injuries that even his demonic regeneration couldn't fix. This was beyond any breathing technique he knew, even Musen's prized son breathing couldn't compare. "Ah, that was pretty damn impressive, wasn't it?" Byakuren replied, with a hint of kindness in his voice. "Yeah, an overlord, an overlord. That blow was definitely something else." "Do it," Akaza murmured, a flicker of acceptance in his eyes. "Ready to die?" Byakuren said nothing. The sun blade flashed, and Akaza's head tumbled to the side. "To fight someone as strong as you. I have no regrets." Akaza's head began to crumble, a faint smile gracing his lips as he faded away. Unlike his original death, besieged by Tanjiro and Ju. This time, Akaza accepted death. Being utterly defeated by Byakuren was the best possible ending. Killed by such a powerful opponent, he felt no lingering resentment, only satisfaction. Because of this peace, Akaza didn't transcend his limits as he did in the original story, becoming a demon impossible to kill by beheading. In seconds, the sun's breath consumed Akaza's body and head, leaving nothing behind. Mr. Byakuren, another upper-rank demon down. Amazing. Kaijuro Rengoku bounded over, a wide smile on his face. Ah, another one bites the dust. Only 3 upper ranks left. Wonder if Musen's refilling those slots, Byakuren mused. Before Tanjiro joined the Demon Slayer Corps, Musen turned Zenitsu's senior, Kaigaku, into a demon, making him upper 6. But Byakuren had taken care of him. Would Musen replace him? That's not good news. Doesn't matter, we'll get them eventually. I'll train harder to catch up to you, Mr. Byakuren. Rengoku declared with a booming laugh. You've got a ways to go. But first, let's patch you up. Those are some nasty injuries. Byakuren chuckled, preparing to heal Rengoku. I'm in your debt, Mr. Byakuren. Emerald light enveloped Rengoku. Above the pit, Tanjiro's voice rang out. He saw Tanjiro and his friends looking down. Mr. Byakuren. Mr. Rengoku. Are you okay? We're fine, Kamadu boy. Meanwhile, in a lavish Kyoto manner, Musen Kibutsuji, in his boyish form, crushed his book, his face contorted with rage, veins bulging, teeth grinding. Akaza's dead too. Damn the Demon Slayer Corps. Every upper rank death was a heavy blow. Creating a new upper rank demon was no easy feat. Many humans could withstand his blood, but few could endure enough to reach that level of power. Byakuren had already taken out upper 6 and upper 2, and he hadn't even replaced them yet. Now, Akaza, just promoted to upper 3, was gone too, also killed by Byakuren. Though he hated to admit it, Musen was furious. At this rate, would Byakuren take out Hentengu and Kokoshibo as well? He couldn't become a lone wolf demon king. Damn, maybe I need to take that kid out. No, forget it. Stay hidden, just endure for a few decades. Initially enraged, Musen quickly calmed down, suppressing his emotions and regaining his composure. If Byakuren knew how cautious Musen was, he'd probably try to offer him some wisteria tea. After all this time searching, Musen was playing it safe. Spread more blood, keep making demons, fill those upper rank slots, Musen muttered, gathering the shredded book. Meanwhile, after the Mugen train mission, Byakuren and the others parted ways. Tanjiro resumed his duties, and Rengoku returned to his family home. Byakuren, naturally, headed back to the Butterfly Mansion. The Mugen train arc was over. Thankfully, Rengoku survived. Next, he'd continue his research on drugs to make demons immune to sunlight. He wondered if the Swordsmith Village arc would unfold as it did in the original story. Byakuren would keep an eye on the village while continuing his research, but, unexpectedly, before the Swordsmith Village incident, bad news arrived. Ubuyashiki Kagaya disappeared, passing away quietly in the night.